Thank you, Kieran. Just a couple of things just before I start about last night. Great venue, great food, great speaker. We learned a few things about Alan Hoare last night we didn't know before. He's very proud to be an Irishman. He emphasised that on a number of occasions. He has showers at 4:45 in the morning. We'll use that information again to embarrass him at some other time, but we'll just bank that one. What most of you don't know about Alan Hoare is that Alan has actually been involved with this whole CITA initiative since 1999. It's going on a long time, himself and Ken Thomas. And I think what you should think about is that Alan and Ken have been thinking not just about this BIM conference, but for now 14 years they've been looking at leveraging IT to transform the architecture, engineering and construction sector in Ireland, and they've relentlessly kept doing that. They've kept putting the challenges out in front of us. And one of the things that is becoming more evident is that it's no longer the AEC sector, it's the AEC-FM sector. And the BIM conference here is bringing that out now. Okay, oh dear. Can somebody deal with that, please? Okay, just while that's being dealt with, I just do want to point out that I am not a BIM expert. I'm probably the least qualified and the least knowledgeable person on BIM that will stand up here or in any of the presentation places over the next couple of days. But I'm going to go back to what Norman Crowley said last night. In the absence of all that BIM knowledge, I'm going to try to fill your mind with happy thoughts. I'm going to try to give you some indication of our ambitions in relation to the Grangegorman project, and from there we'll, what, DTOF, was it? Okay. Right, so I'm going to talk about a number of different things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project background, our progress, what we're doing at the moment, what the development program is at the moment, and the challenges that may arise, the opportunities that may arise in using BIM. And that's just a very, very small bit at the end of it, because as I said, I'm far from being an expert. So in relation to the project background, first of all we look at DIT, and DIT, this slide just basically says we're big in the Irish context. We're big and we're important. We like to think we're important, but we certainly are one of the biggest in Ireland. We cover about 10% of the third level education in Ireland, and for those of you who don't know the way the sector operates in Ireland, the Institute of Technology sector does everything from apprenticeship to PhD. Whereas the traditional university sector takes everything from honours degree on through to PhD. We do quite a lot of research. All our graduates are working in the professions, or sorry, 80% of our graduates are working in the professions, and as you can see from the figures there, we're a big organisation. We're scattered all over the city, and this is one of our biggest problems. We do have signature buildings or signature places such as Bolton Street, Kevin Street, Cahal Street and so on. But part of the problem that we have when we are scattered all over the city is it doesn't work as one organisation. And what we're trying to do when we're looking into this thing about moving to Grangegorman is we are trying to develop the things that we can't do right now. Even things like the student societies, we can't get them to operate and to collaborate, to keep using the phrase that's coming up here in the last day and a half. We can't get them to do that because they're scattered all over the place. We had no sports facilities until recent years. And we have no place where we can have student accommodation. So we can't advertise our own student accommodation and bring in students from places like India, China and various other places around the world. So this is a huge disadvantage to us. So in doing that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring everything together and to try to make it work. But of course, if you have 39 different buildings scattered all over the city, you have huge costs that other organisations that are based primarily on one site don't have. So our cost per student is much higher than any other institute of technology, and a lot of it is down to our estate costs. And the other huge opportunity that we're missing is we're not getting the chance to create the synergies that we need with the various different parts of DIT. And people here will say, but why don't you collaborate electronically? Well, really the people have got to know each other first, and in order to do that it really helps if they're all together. So what we're trying to do is to bring this big organisation, because in Irish terms it is a big organisation, together into one place and to try to make it work as one organisation. So we had three different things that we could do. We could stay where we were, we could move out of town like UCD did numerous years ago, or we could look for some place in the centre of the city. But because DIT is synonymous with Dublin itself, staying in the centre of the city made an awful lot more sense. And we use the term, the city is our campus. Well, we actually want more than that. We want our own campus as well. So what was discovered when people looked around in relation to what was possible was this huge green space, which is just over a kilometre from the centre of the town. And if you look around Grangegorman, if you look at that there, you see that it's built up all around it. And this just exists. It's 30 hectares or 73 acres if you think in old money, as my father says. And this just exists. How it survived the boom is one of the things that we think about. If you look at where it was in the 1950s, on the east side of the site, which is the lower part of the slide there, was heavily built up. But the other part of the site wasn't heavily built up, and never was. There was nothing ever built on it, which is incredible for something just a kilometre from the city centre. So this site provides a huge opportunity for us. But it existed primarily because it was for psychiatric patients, psychiatric health. And there was a stigma in Ireland about psychiatric health. And in all of these old psychiatric buildings, there were big walls built around them for two reasons: to keep people in and to keep people out. And as a result of that, a lot of people who live in the Dublin 7 area, which is where this is based, have no idea of the scale of this site. And it's only when they come in and walk around as guests around it, they're looking into saying, oh my God, I never knew this was on my doorstep. And imagine what this will be like when it's opened up to us. So, in looking at that, as you can see from the site, it's very heavily or very densely built right around it. It's completely surrounded. But where we are now is that we've completed the demolition of the buildings we need to complete, and we're now beginning to move forward towards construction. But of course, it's not just DIT, because the site itself was owned by the Health Services Executive and will continue to be owned in part by the Health Services Executive on into the future. And as well as that, there will be other things which will happen on the site which never happened before. There's going to be a new primary school. So we're now going to have young children in this place, which before was behind huge walls and which was a forbidding place to be. We're going to have a library there which will be shared with the Dublin City Council. It will double as a library for us, for the primary school, and for the Health Services Executive. So these type of things are going to happen that make it more than just DIT. But if you look at the site overall, and you look at the scale of it, and when you add up everything that's there, there's 380,000 square metres of floor space. And again, to go back to the old money phrase, that's about 3.5 million square feet. This is a big, big project. But it's not all DIT. About 270,000 of that is DIT. And the remainder is divided up, as you can see there. And it's not all education. There's about 150,000 square metres of education and research. The remainder of it is in industry parks, student accommodation, amenities, food and retail, cultural, and so on. So the benefits for the city and the community generally were something that were taken into account when this project was first envisaged. If you open up an area of 73 acres in a place like Dublin 7, which has approximately 0.7 of if you take the average income of Dublin to be 1, 0.7 is what's the average of the Dublin 7 area. So it is 30% less well off than the rest of the average of Dublin. And if you consider that some places are even less well off than Dublin 7, then you can see that it's not really doing very well. So to open this up, it really is an urban regeneration project. It's not just a campus development project. And in this, what we're trying to do is to share this big site with all of Dublin, not just with DIT, but to use DIT as the driver for that. But of course there are huge benefits for DIT as well, because it now does bring all of these people together, all these people that we spoke about who are scattered all over Dublin. It gives us an opportunity to do new things in third level education. For example, we will now have architects working in a building beside the musicians. We will have scientists working in buildings beside the business people. We will have the engineers working with everybody, hopefully. And this is the way that it should work in the future. So what we're trying to do is to build these synergies, but it should also give us an opportunity to have a much more efficient organisation from the point of view of cost, but also from the point of view of the way in which we change and respond to the challenges which come up to us in the future. Okay, so that's just some of the background. Let's just look at how it's going to be done. The first thing just to look at is the the overall planning, how that has gone so far, and starting first with the Grangegorman Development Agency. Now this is an agency that was set up which will develop the entire site. It's not just the DIT site, it's everything. It's the public realm, it's the HSE and so on. But it accepts the site from the HSE and then consults with all the relevant stakeholders, develops the strategic plan and procures, manages and hands over these properties to the users when they're finished. And as well as that, it also disposes of the existing DIT sites. So this is a development agency which will carry out all of this work. When I first moved to Grangegorman, when I was seconded to Grangegorman 2 years ago, I remember going back to the College of Engineering and Built Environment to make a presentation that Christmas, just for the Christmas wrap-up. And somebody said, when is it going to start? I said, it started in 1999. It's just we didn't realise that. A bit like CITA, started in 1999 as well. But if you look at that slide there, you can see that there's a couple of stars there which were very important things that happened along the way. The first thing that happened was that there was an Act of Parliament passed which actually set up the Grangegorman Development Agency as a statutory agency. And that gave it the powers to actually run this project. The second thing that was very important was in 2008 when the master plan was approved. And the master plan basically laid out the whole site. So we know the building plots that are there, we know the heights of those buildings, we know all the green areas. In fact, we even know how many extra trees we're going to plant. It's 873. I looked that up yesterday. I'm not going to count them. Okay, but what it also does as well is it shows that 60% of the site will remain as a green area and 40% of the site will be built on. And as we go forward into 2010, 2011, you can see that more stars begin to appear. And we're now looking at the strategic plan, we're now looking at the land being transferred, implementation programs being put in place, the strategic development zone planning being approved, and the government announcing the revised funding arrangements in July 2012, which were essential to this happening. The one that we don't refer to that much is the one that happened 2 years ago, when all of the funding was deferred. And I remember I had arrived in Grangegorman just a month beforehand, and my colleagues in the College of Engineering and Built Environment said to me, well, that didn't take you long, did it? Okay, there's a bit of that slide missing for some reason, but it basically shows the outline of the overall master plan. And as you can see in the middle, the piece in the middle there, it just shows the different plots that are being used for different activities. So some of it is for education, some of it is for amenity, some of it is for health. And in the second part of it, on the right-hand side of the slide, the red pieces show the expansion areas. The other bits will be built first, and then the expansion areas will come along afterwards. The master plan has won numerous awards, and most of them, of course, are in the United States. That's because the people who put the plan together are based in the United States, and they entered this into several competitions. But it has won awards all over the place. So it has often been said that it is one of the most awarded projects that exists and one of the most launched projects that exists, but we still don't have a single student up there. It's a bit like Jim Hacker and the famous Florence Nightingale Award for the best administered hospital in Britain that had no patients. But we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. Okay, so it's a comprehensive strategic planning framework. This is the strategic development zone, and it came about after extensive consultation. It has been approved by the Dublin City Council and on Board Pleanála as being effectively outline planning permission for every single building that's going to go on the site. So we don't have to go for third-party approval of anything in future. When we put in a planning application now, if we conform with the SDZ, we get it in 8 weeks. So we've removed the planning risk from the project completely, which is it's fantastic, particularly in relation to the bigger parts of the project. What this has done is, if you look at what has been achieved by the Grangegorman Development Agency, they certainly have brought a coherent vision to the project about how to implement the project. They've got a very good mix of uses. They've got something which is a real urban quarter. It's not just a number of bits that have been thrown together and it looks right. It's got very high quality public realm, and this has been planned right from the start, even with knowing how many trees are going to be in there. And it also is looking at the whole thing about bringing transport in as well. So the Lewis line, the light rail line, will run through the site as well. And on the other side there's now talk about having the BRT line coming down Prussia Street, the bus light transport. Current activities. So we're going to look at the projects that are on now. We're going to look at some of the funding issues and the delivery of the works programmes themselves. Okay, I'm colourblind, so I'm just declaring that straight off. So if this doesn't work, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. The green ones are the ones that are go. The orange ones are the ones that are almost go. The yellow ones, I didn't put any red ones in there because we don't believe in red. The yellow ones are the ones that will soon be orange ones, and then they'll soon be green ones. And the white ones are the ones that are finished. The blue ones are the ones we have no money for yet. But we don't consider that they'll be red ones because we're actually actively discussing with people how to fund these. For example, the student accommodation will be funded by private money. There's no doubt about that. And we are hoping that we will be able to tie in the food halls into the ground floors of the student accommodation. So these things will come. We just keep thinking that 2 years ago we had no money. We now have a budget of approximately €360 million to develop the site over the next 5 years. So it will come. We believe it will come. The only building that's fully finished and occupied is actually the health services building, the new psychiatric hospital or mental health facility, and that was built in order to allow us to empty the old buildings so that we can start moving on the new buildings. But as you can see there, we have a number of projects that are live. A number of contractors are actually on site at the moment. A number of projects are in procurement, actively in procurement at the moment. The breakdown of that 360 million, roughly half of that is going to be in the PPPs, and then the remainder will be in other buildings which involve the health services executive, the new primary school, and then the other buildings that we're going to build on the site as well. I'm sorry, what's happened here? This appears to have gone missing. I'll just skip over it. Okay. The programs that are going on at the moment, if we look at the first one as being the enabling project, we're doing the infrastructure work, we're doing the renovation of the old buildings with a view to having 1,000 students up there this time next year, and we're building a research facility, and all of that will be completed by 2015 with the renovation completed by 2014, August 2014. The bigger part of the project, the one that's getting most of the headlines, is the PPPs. There are two large buildings which are going to they're going to tender by PPP. The ITN, the pre-qualification of the consortia which will bid for this is currently underway, and that will be completed. They will have to submit before Christmas. It will be assessed in the couple of weeks after that, and it will be going to the market with 3 bidders at the end of January, the start of February, with a view towards contract close in 2015, and the buildings will actually open for use in 2017. And we will take 10,000 students onto the site at that stage. Now, people look at this and say 10,000, can't really get my head around how big a crowd of 10,000 is. It's half the size of the town of Wexford. The population of Wexford is about 20,000. Athlone is around the same size. So we're going to bring that amount of people onto a site of 73 acres in the north inner city of Dublin. So we're really looking at what will the impact be of doing that on that area, and it should be enormous. Going on from 2017, but we're hoping actually to start some of them before that, will be things like the student housing, the sports and recreation, the science park, the energy centre, and so on. These are the other projects, the projects which will follow beyond that, the third part of the programme. So just looking very briefly then at the first one again, 1,000 students on site by September 2014, and refurbishment of 8,000 square metres of existing buildings, and new buildings being built, and the site infrastructure and public realm underway as well, because we need to put down the full site infrastructure to ensure that we're not constantly digging things up in the future. So in the protected structures, we have a number of protected structures on site which we are refurbishing at the moment, and they're just shown on that diagram there. These slides, by the way, I've been told are going to be made available to everybody afterwards, so you'll be able to look at these at your leisure. But there's 8,000 square metres that we're going to be working on over the next while, and the contractor is actually starting on Monday for the first tranche of that. So by 2014, we will have finished the buildings which will bring these students up. The research building will be in construction, and we'll be moving on to the next phase, and some of the images on the bottom there are the computer generated images of what these buildings will look like when they're refurbished. The Eshi hothouse building, which is this one here, 4,700 square metres of design and build. The first ones that we're doing will be traditional contract. These are design and build, and that's going out early next year. it's in tender at the moment, it will be starting early next year. The infrastructure plan is extremely important, because if we don't lay down the backbone of the site at this stage, we don't shape the site the way we want it. We know what the site is going to look like when everything is built on it. So we now are able to actually lay down all of the roads, all the footpaths, all of the drainage, all of the ductwork, everything can go in there now. So that's actually underway. The contractor is now on site doing that work. And the two big PPPs, these are two big buildings. Well, it's going to be one PPP as in one contract, but the two big buildings, 34,000 square metres in the central quad, which will take all of the students that are currently in the Kevin Street building and the Cathal Brewer Street building. And in the east quad, we're going to take all of the art design people that are currently in Mountjoy Square, Portland Row, Temple Bar, and some of the music from Rathmines. As you can see, they're big buildings. The images which you have there are some of the images which we have got from the process that we've gone through so far with our technical advisors to work out the massing of the building, the adjacencies, and so on in relation to preparing the documentation for going to tender. So this is where we are at the moment. The PEN notice, the preliminary information notice, was issued in August. The EIB has approved funding. If you go onto the EIB site, you'll see that we're a project which will be funded by the EIB. All of the output specifications and documentations have been signed off and ready for tender at this stage. There are obviously tweaks that have to be done to get them 100% right, but we're well up into the high 90s in relation to percentage finished. Procurement is underway for this, as in we're shortlisting the bidders for it now, and we expect to have financial close in summer 2015. And just in case we thought we had everything done at that stage, these are all the projects that will be coming down the track afterwards. So Grangegorman, as you can see, is a big project. And one of the things that we're looking at here is not just a project, it's a programme of projects. And I just call that to 2020 and beyond. I certainly hope it's not infinity and beyond. But certainly I think it'll see me out from the point of view of my career in DIT. Okay, so what were we supposed to be talking about? BIM. Challenges and opportunities. Well, one of the biggest, and unfortunately, I don't know what's happened here, but we're losing some of the images that I had here. But some of the problems we have in relation to challenges relate to the terminology. Because if you look at terminology, it's level 0, level 1, level 2. But on the language thing there, I had done a Wordle with all the various different words that there are around BIM. And for anybody who doesn't know much about BIM, to look at things like, you know, 6D and 4D and LOC, whatever it is, I don't know what that means. And most of the people working in the industry don't know what that means. And that is a problem. And it's something that's going to have to be grasped by the people who, just people like yourselves. You're going to have to try and explain it a little bit better. This may make perfect sense to you, but it makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think what needs to happen is that we need to get to a stage where it's, you know, let's do it for stupid people first, and then let the clever people come in afterwards. But what tends to happen with a lot of the challenges with project management is that different people come to these things with different ideas. And one of the big problems that we have, of course, is that we have different funders. Okay, you're saying all the money eventually is coming from the government, but not necessarily. The research building is part funded by the PRTLI and Enterprise Ireland, so it's coming from grant money, and each of those have specific criteria that we have to meet. The standard contracts for refurbishment have particular things we have to meet. The PPPs are coming from the private sector, so there's other criteria we've got to meet there. So different funders bring different challenges as well. So when you say the client drives it, no, the guy with the money drives it. That's the reality of this. And the other thing that happens as well is that there's certain urgency on some packages. So a package is going out to tender, and we're saying, are you doing BIM in that? And they say, no, we don't have time to do BIM in that, we have to get this done. You know, so this is the sort of things that happen. And then there are different procurement methods, because one is PPP, one is design build, one is traditional contract. And each of them bring different ways of work. And it's difficult to pull it all together. And I'm sure you've all seen this one before, but we're coming across this all the time. That everybody has a different view of what BIM is. And as you can see there, we're in the second and third one on the top. We want the second one. We told them that we want the third one because we've told them not enough. And what we really needed is the one right down on the bottom right. But everybody else has got a different view of what exactly BIM is. And I even heard that last night, that when people are talking about BIM, that very few people can actually agree across the sector as to what exactly it is. And one of the biggest challenges that there is with moving to something like BIM is this fear of new developments. And that fear will come across in how much is this going to cost us? Do we have the training to do it? We don't have the time to implement this. And then there's the reluctance to buy in. We'll wait to see somebody else do it first, see how they get on, and then we'll go after them. We'll see, does that work? There's a mistrust of the new. And everybody keeps saying, yes, but it's all contained in one place, so therefore it has to be right every place. What if it's wrong in the middle? Then it's wrong every place. And this is something that somebody said to me once. You know, if the core is wrong, everything's wrong, so we can't trust it. And then the other problem is that most projects are traditionally procured and managed in isolation. They're not managed as a program of projects. So we have that to try to get them to work together as a development program as well. So there's a huge lack of knowledge out there in the professions. And, you know, as was said earlier on, you know, it's the people who are supposed to be intelligent and supposed to be educated that are actually struggling with this. So when we look at this, though, we look at the way in which this has been set up. Now, I took this off another slide, and I don't know if the colours are even the same here. But you can see that we have this site infrastructure and public realm right at the middle. This is like a BIM model. But we haven't got BIM in the site infrastructure and public realm. You know, so we have things that we need to look at when we look at this as opportunities. We've got to get these things right. But one of the huge opportunities that there is with the Grangegorman project is that it's going to last at least 10 years, if not longer. It's got huge potential for research and huge potential as some place where you can track whether or not something works or doesn't work. And you will even be able to look at it through the life cycle of the buildings themselves and not just the actual construction of the projects. So this is a huge opportunity. It's a living laboratory. And it's an opportunity that should be taken up and should be actioned. And then when we look at the other things that we keep getting told, that BIM delivers real value, it takes conflicts out of design, it reduces time, it makes for easier implementation of change. Yes, I know that because I'm an academic. I've read all this. But try to get the guys that are out there doing it thinking like this. It's very, very difficult. So what I would say in conclusion is that Grangegorman provides an enormous opportunity as an exemplar project. And I really do think that CITA, as an organisation which is leveraging IT generally, or the use of IT generally in the construction industry, should really be a major player in how this is brought to reality. But it must be driven at the funder level, and this is something that I was saying to Alan yesterday. The people that are really driving this are Brendan Howland's department, the Department of Public Reform, Enterprise and Public Reform. That's where it's got to come from. So Brian Hayes, who was the guy here yesterday, he's the guy we've got to keep pressure on, because he's the junior minister in that area. Okay, if you need further information, you can get it on our website. You can call me up, you can send me an email. I might not have the information that you want, but I'll certainly be able to point you in the direction of the person who will. So thank you for listening, and even though I didn't know an awful lot about BIM, at least hopefully you might be able to see some of the opportunities that arise from a project such as this.